going to return to our speakers. Next we have Abdul Osmanu, who's a member of the Hampton Legislative Council representing District 3. So, Abdul, would you come up, please?
Yeah, a little on the taller side. So. It's deeply amazing to be here. I think, in fact, I think a little bit difficult to follow up after I think hearing some of the.
Could you step forward just a bit?
Oh, okay. It's amazing to be here. I think a little bit difficult to follow up some of the more harrowing. Should I just?
No. Just leave it. Just adjust the screen.
Oh, the screen.
Just push it back a little. Okay. So you're.
All right. I didn't know whether it was the audio or the.
Audio is fine.
All right. I was saying a little bit difficult to really, follow up some of the harrowing accounts of the firsthand, witnessing of some of the most grave crimes against humanity that we can ever really, even think about. I think so. I'll start off a little bit personally. My introduction really to the genocide and some of the crimes against humanity that we've all been witnessing, for some of us for 2 years, for many of us actually decades, in the entirety of our whole entire life. In fact, for some folks, interwoven within the grain of their existence. My introduction was really through learning from fellow Palestinians that I grew up around as someone that was raised in and still follows the Muslim faith. That was my introduction, being able to hear from folks when they were finally confident enough to tell me what country that they were from, because they'd grown up afraid of telling people, and they told people that they were Jordanian or they were from Qatar or so on and so forth. So I think that's something that has always really that I've carried with me. But I think especially within the past 2, even I think 3 years, because before you even get to October 7th, you have some of the raids of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in 2023 that happened earlier in the year before you had October 7th, and so on and so forth. What really has become clear and apparent to me is that isn't really the point, and truly isn't enough. In that my faith is what brought me to truly understanding or recognizing what was really going on. Because as I look up, it's a really multicultural and multi-faith movement that has been able to be born out of these past couple of years, with, like I said, once again, people that have been a part of the struggle for years and years, and folks that are new and every single day really being able to bear witness, whether it's seeing or hearing some of the horrors that continue to go on. And that's really led me to understand that I care about this issue because, my faith informs me to care regardless of, who is actually, witness or being victimized. That it doesn't matter if this person, is Muslim. It doesn't matter if this person's Christian, where there's tons of Christians that exist in Palestine. It doesn't matter if they were Jewish. It doesn't matter if they're atheist, pagan, whatsoever. It is merely set in the fact that they are a fellow human being. And I would like to think after centuries of toil and war and calamity that we would all be able to agree that there are unalienable human rights that exist for all of us. So I think that's been one of the more important things for me. And as an undergraduate student, I am just as young as I look, I'm 24. I was actually able to take courses on genocide studies, which I would say was one of the more humbling experiences, where I think it's a little bit clearer now, but I think I'd like for us to all set ourselves in a pre-October 7th landscape, and being exposed to just how horrific genocide is, and how strategic and targeted the callousness and lack of care for human life truly is, where that's where I was able to understand when we look at an issue such as genocide. We oftentimes within the West and United States actually use it in the aftermath, or after the worst elements of genocide have occurred. where, you know, you can look at it with something even such as the Holocaust, when we decided to start, you know, treating it like the genocide that it was, whether we're talking about Rwanda, whether we're talking about Bosnia, so on and so forth. Within, you know, the imperial court, it is almost, you know, law or a given that we treat genocide as such long after, you know, some of the worst crimes and harms against humanity have been, you know, acted out, carried out. And I think that's what really makes the work that we all collectively do in our own shapes and ways important. Because when you look at, you know, the moments where, you know, the tide has shifted and things have begun to turn for the better, it's when that popular support really arises. It's when folks really understand, you know, the vestiges and cogs that, you know, facilitate genocide need to be, you know, frozen or really torn asunder. I think that's, you know, that's why it's important to continue doing things like this and having events like this where we're able to, you know, talk about this. Where, you know, we have to be able to talk about the intentional targeting of healthcare workers in the infrastructure, you know, that really is done with the intent of leading towards, you know, mass casualty. We have to talk about the fact that, especially within a state like Connecticut, good chunks of our economy are deeply invested in the market of war and murder of folks. It's almost insane to think that the very same success and financial prosperity of some folks really hinges on a lot of this. And that more or less is what we have to be able to come to terms with in our role to be able to fight against that, to really, you know, get our wins, whether it's talking about freeing Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya or we're talking about, you know, a true, actual, meaningful ceasefire, lifting the siege, so on and so forth. That's what it really takes. And that's why it's, you know, our complicity should be something that we're able to call out, because I think individually there is some level of complicity that we have within this. And really being able to turn that complicity into like a coherent strategy of how we actually fight against this. For some folks, it's going to be in the workplace, where this event is an example of, you know, fighting and advocating in that realm in the interest of healthcare workers. For others, it's in the street and communities, organizing, you know, to stop the churn and our writ large complicity materially and even in the abstract, because I think pointing out the abstract is important, where, you know, when we talk about the words that we use, that's why it's so important to use the word genocide. That's why it's, you know, important for, you know, folks like Dr. Brewer to be able to, as powerfully and viscerally, really speak to some of the horrors that they've witnessed. As when we water down and dampen the language that we use, it really does take away from like the true reality of the human suffering that we are witnessing, where maybe that's one of the reasons why we can maybe find solace and thankfulness in like the advent of, you know, multimedia, you know, the fact that we are in an era where we can actually be able to see these things and understand that this pain and suffering is not it may be hundreds of miles away, but it's something that we all can actually be able to see and feel in a way. So I'd say for me, sometimes that fight finds itself in the halls of local government when the opportunity arises. I did not hesitate upon during the genocide to be able to try to bring up these issues and speak about it in my own neck of the woods, where, you know, I can say, we're going to use Arabic here, alhamdulillah, that through that we were able to really like talk about a lot of these core key issues. I was able to figure out that like my municipality that I live in, for the most part, doesn't actually have any direct ties invested within Israel in of itself. I'd say like a deeper dive probably is warranted, but we have many places in our state that like I was saying before, really do profit off of a lot of this. And more or less before I go, I think one of the things that I had on my mind quite a bit was a recent picture of Ben Gvir, the chief of, I forgot what he's more or less what securities, national security for Israel. He actually was seen wearing a noose.
That's right. Yes.
More or less advocating for their ability to create a death penalty for terrorism for Palestinians. This is something that, much like is codified and sanctioned within the state of Israel, something that would only be able to apply to Palestinians, which is why, like I was saying, language is important. What we are here for is like a free Palestine and a Palestine in writ large area where Palestinians are actually granted like these same rights and recognition of their humanity as Israelis in that area. But yeah, when we're looking at something such as a noose pin, a golden noose pin, to be able to advocate for the state-sanctioned slaughter, because I'd like to add state-sanctioned once again, because going back to the fact that words matter, there already is slaughter that exists. Every time the Israeli government hands a settler in the West Bank a gun, they hand them that gun understanding that this is a gun that may be used to brutalize a Palestinian. And those guns oftentimes are actually made in coal factories in Connecticut, if I were to really call that out. So I look at that noose and that pin, and I see, the advocation for state-sanctioned violence and murder. I see, myself as someone who is, Black, what that could possibly mean for me, and, the understanding that there has never been an instance in human history where a noose has stood for a good thing. And here we have like a government official, parading this around, almost as if, it's his goal and his trophy to be able to realize and achieve this dream. And as upset and angry as that makes me understand, the importance of this struggle, the importance of this fight. Whether it's, like I was saying, in our workplaces, at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. So, I think that this is something that I'm happy and proud to be a part of, and continue to figure out, how we actually can, make this fight like a successful one that we win.